Hi, this is Ryan Phillips here, and this is Game 3 of the match between Jon Trivett and Chris Reynolds. This was a fantastic game by Chris with the black pieces to even up the score at 1.5, 1.5. Continue with the trend of analyzing the games from the black side of the board because the black openings have all been extremely interesting to me, to say the least. So without further ado, here's the game. Start off d4, knight f6, c4. And then I'm already, Chris has a surprise in store, so his preparation in this game worked out extremely well for him. No doubt, I'm assuming Jon was expecting another Grunfeld. But Chris deviated here with e5. And I'm drawing on the name of, blanking on the name of this gambit. I think I have a book on it. Oh, the Budapest. Okay, I have a book on it right here. The Budapest Gambit. And yeah, again, I can't emphasize enough. I've been really interested in every single black opening in this match because a lot of the openings are openings I'm interested in. E5, of course, is not a move you'll see too frequently at Grandmaster level, but I think club level and especially with a lot of preparation, definitely worth a shot. I think in this situation, I think Chris's mentality was good in this game. He doesn't really have much to lose being the lower rated player, but of course. I'll take that back. I mean, he doesn't have that much to lose from the perspective that, according to ratings, he is the underdog in the match. But everyone's a competitor, so he does have a lot to lose from the standpoint that nobody likes to lose, and he's trying to win the match. But at the same time, I think it was a good decision to play e5 and kind of play a more aggressive game and kind of change the course of the match a little bit. So Jon played the main line. He played with a lot of bravado here. D takes e5. He didn't chicken out Jon with like knight f3 or something, or move like e3 or something like that, which would probably give black a slight advantage already, but would at least keep the game kind of out of theory for both players. Whereas in this situation, the game might just be out of theory for one player. So D takes e5. And here's a couple interesting choices. Knight g4 is overwhelmingly the most common move, but knight e4 is also an interesting alternative. Computer doesn't care for that move too much, but I'm guessing with some adequate home preparation that knight e4 is probably playable if you study the line extensively and your opponent is not that familiar with it. It probably could be a move that you can get away with playing. Anyway, knight g4, and then here's a couple choices: knight f3 or bishop f4. So Jon went with knight f3. So basically, obviously, the e-pawn is being attacked. It's already an interesting opening. The diagonal for the black dark sword bishop is open, so black shouldn't have too much trouble castling, it looks like. And it looks like white's pieces are a little... they're undeveloped now, obviously none of these pieces are developed, but of course a pawn is a pawn, and white will develop his pieces in due time. It's interesting though, it seems like black gets to kind of dictate a little bit where white develops their pieces to if they want to hold on to the pawn. A lot of times I've seen the white side play where they don't even really bother to hold on to the pawn, they don't even really try. So knight f3 obviously is a very natural developing move, so black isn't making white do anything they don't want with knight f3, but somewhere down the line they might like moves like bishop f4, stuff like that, maybe not the kind of opening moves that white wants to play at that point. So a lot of times I see white just give back the pawn and just kind of be happy with the quality of the opening and try to outplay their opponent in the middle game, or be content with a draw or something like that. So knight f3, bishop c5, so excellent move. Also, an alternative is knight c6. So let me just show you one trap. I don't know, maybe I'm sure Budapest players are gonna be pretty upset that I'm showing this off, but one possible trap in this line is knight c6. Bishop f4, bishop b4 check, knight b to d2, queen e7, a3, knight g takes e5, and then of course if and this is a trap, if a takes b4, then knight d3 checkmate. And actually fell into this mate myself against Josh Simi a long time ago. It was pretty fun. It was fun day. I was basically playing with Eric Cornejo and Josh Simi, and Eric said, "Hey, play d4," because I never played d4. So he's like, "Play d4 and let's play a Budapest Gambit." And he said, "I want to see if you fall into this trap," which obviously should have alerted me that there was going to be a impending trap coming. But yeah, I somehow managed to fall into this exact checkmate. This is probably, gosh, I'd probably be, say, 16 or 17 years old, something like that. Probably about 17, I would guess. So it was a funny story. But this line doesn't lose a piece. So for example, say knight takes, bishop takes. You're not obligated to take the bishop on e5, of course. So after bishop takes d2 check, computer shows dead equality. So basically, it's a trap for black to maybe white might fall into this trap. But if white doesn't fall into the trap, it's not a bad variation because you still get complete equality as black. So it's these are one of the traps that I do kind of recommend. If you could lay a trap that even if your opponent spots the trap, it's not bad positionally. Then I say there's no real risk in doing that. Sometimes, especially players when they first begin, they want to set these traps that if their opponent finds the answer to them, they're going to have an inferior position. So this isn't the case in this situation. So you can definitely condone playing something like this. Anyway, though, back to the game continuation. So sorry, I got a little off track there. Chris played bishop c5 here. So already you see the attacking formation of the black pieces. The f2 pawn, which is the basically the weakest square in either camp, the f2 or f7 square, because the king is the only piece that develops it from the opening. Basically, Chris is attacking this immediately. And with the knight on f3, without being able to go to h3, it's very hard to, there's no way to stop this with any kind of piece play, I don't think. I'm assuming that knight d4 would probably fall to, looks like knight d4 would fall to knight takes f2 on account of queen h4 check, getting the piece back, and a pawn back. So dead material equality, but it's far better for black than that because now the white king is extremely exposed, and it's going to be hard for white to develop their king side also. So basically, it's forced to kind of defend this. I mean, you could obviously try bishop e3. Bishop e3 is a move, but just obviously that's not a very good move, of course. And computer showing bishop g5. So let's take a second look at this. It looks like yeah, it looks like this is just too slow, of course. All right, so basically, it looks like after bishop c5, e3 is pretty much forced. And then Chris continues, so knight c6. So already I'd say the opening was pretty successful for Chris, which actually makes me think the Budapest game is not bad. I know Ivan Chuk played this against Aronian in the candidates match, and Carlsen was pretty critical of his decision to play that. He likes to use that term unprofessional a lot, but I really disagree. I don't want to disagree with the number one player in the world. So obviously seems kind of silly, but I think it was kind of unfair criticism because Ivan Chuk actually got a complete equality out of the opening. It was only later on in the game that he was outplayed. So I thought the criticism was more kind of results based, and obviously Carlsen had a lot at stake at that moment. But anyway, I thought Budapest seems like, if you know what you're doing, that you can get a playable game with it. So after knight c6, Jon plays bishop e2. So maybe Jon was more in theory than I thought. He's basically playing the mainline moves. And I like Jon's handling of the opening. He just said, black's trying to create a lot of fireworks. And he's basically saying, no, let's just keep it simple. You're going to castle kingside, I'm going to castle kingside, and we'll play normal chess. I think the advantage that black has got in this opening, even though the computer showing equality, is that this dark square bishop on c1 is going to be difficult for white to develop. Whereas after the one of these knights, either the knight on c or g, end up capturing the e-pawn, after d6, all of black's pieces have an easy time developing. So both sides castle here, and I wonder, the castle is the second choice, but it's been played the same number of times. And then, actually, when I play this in Blitz, I think I'm too cautious in this opening. I always play knight g takes e5, and I don't really consider knight c takes e5 too often, which I think is a big mistake. I think now taking it with knight g takes e5 after e3 makes more sense since there's no f2 threat anymore. But sometimes I take knight c takes e5 when this threat is still available. So I think I played this opening too cautiously. So anyway, so both sides castle, and looks like best move from both sides. Both sides just get king safety. Now we have a pretty aggressive game. So knight c takes e5. So Chris is playing aggressive, which again, I usually just play this natural knight g takes e5. Maybe too scared, but knight c takes e5 looks perfectly normal. And then let's just look at maybe if like h3. If h3, I'm guessing knight takes f3. Looks good. So the knight on g4 is actually pretty safe, it looks like, at the moment. So taking knight c takes e5 looks very playable. So Jon kind of simplified. So I think Jon handled the opening fine. He was presented with like an opening surprise by Chris, and I think he did a good job to. I think he did a good job combating that. So knight c3, d6. So yeah, so black's position is extremely solid, as is white's. Okay, b3. So I like this move. You have to figure out a way to develop this bishop, and this looks like the only way. So Jon's doing a good job of developing his pieces. Here Chris played bishop f5. So the b1 h7 diagonal looks pretty good for the light square bishop here. I can't really see anywhere else where it could develop. Maybe you try bishop d7 and c6 perhaps, but that looks like a slower plan. Bishop f5 looks more direct. Maybe putting a knight onto d3 at some point in the future if the bishop swings like f3, for example. So bishop f5 does a lot of constricting of the black. Bishop f5 constricts the white pieces a little bit as to where it can develop to. So bishop b2. And then here Chris plays a very aggressive move with queen h4. And I don't want to give Chris a big ego, but I don't know. This position is kind of reminded me of the game 3 of the Fischer-Spassky match a little bit in the Benoni opening, where it looked like black tried for a mating attack on the h2 square. I'm trying to remember. I know the black pawn structure got ruined after like a knight h5 idea, but then the other knight was able to jump into g4 and correct the pawn structure. I know like subsequent analysis hasn't been too kind to the idea that Fischer had, but it worked in the match, and in the other games it wasn't Fischer playing that move, so maybe he would have been able to find improvements over the play of his contemporaries. So after queen h4 we have knight d5, which I think Jon is playing. I don't know, maybe too general principle, not really answering the call of the position. It's not a bad move or anything, but I'm just wondering. I'm wondering what his objective is with this knight d5 move. I guess attacking the pawn on c7 and then letting the bishop on b2 get some mobility makes sense. So it was an okay move. When I was looking over the game, though, I thought maybe Jon's not really playing according to the position. He's just trying to do something active, which is generally not a terrible idea. So Chris played c6. And then here the computer liked the counter-attacking idea of b4, which is something that these are kind of moves that I miss a lot too, because I think blitz really ruins you. When you play blitz, you're more I think sometimes you're playing very reactionary chess. So your opponent attacks you, you move your attacked piece. But yeah, I mean b4 looks like a good move to counterattack the dark square bishop, and then if the dark square bishop moves to like b6, for example, then the knight could take off the dark square bishop and not have to waste his tempo by moving away and giving black to move again. So let's see if there's any kind of way for is there any variation where black can win a pawn here. So we got this, and then yeah, it looks like material equality still. Yeah, this would have been a crazy variation. Queen takes d5 would have been very interesting. I was looking at this. Okay, this just gives the rooks time to hit the queen. So computer's showing a small advantage for white here, and I think this is very strong right here. But still, with the opposite colored bishops, I think that white would best play should be able to draw this position. Although holding on to this d pawn looks like a pretty difficult task. So it looks like yeah, queen takes d5 is just a very interesting move. Okay, so after so queen takes d5, and then We have bishop e6, and then knight d4 or queen d4. So yeah, this would have been. I mean, with computer, it's easy to figure all this out, but without computer, this looks like a pretty complicated line. And then, yeah, this would have been a beautiful variation, but obviously pretty hard for either side to see. I think that I think it's pretty equal. I guess white ends up with the two bishops, but I like the kind of the queenside pawn majority for black here. It's going to be difficult to advance against the two bishops, but I think it should distract the bishops enough that that black should have good equality here. Anyway, after c6, Jon played the more natural human move. He played knight f4 here. And then, yeah, man, I think from here out, I think Chris has played beautiful chess. Very, very dynamic play from here on out to convert this position into a win. So I think this has to be a huge boost of confidence for Chris, and I think he should be very proud of his play here. I would be proud of to play a game like this myself. So rook a to d8. And then you can kind of feel Jon's feeling the pressure here. He's not really exactly sure what to do in this position. Jon's not really the type of player that just kind of wants to wait and see. He wants to make something happen. So I think in this game that might have been his downfall. I think if he would have just calmly developed his pieces more, he would have been in a better position than what ended up happening in the game. So knight d3, which I think is the first significant mistake that either side has made. Bishop b6. So computer showing rook fe8, which I understand Chris didn't want to give up his dark sword bishop, or queen e7. Either of these moves I think would have been pretty hard to find, and you know, we're not computers, so we probably shouldn't expect that much of ourselves to be able to play like computers. So bishop b6 I think is a very natural move and almost equally as good. And yeah, I think Jon just lost the thread of the position. He just wanted to make something happen. Rook c1. And then again, this computer is showing this bishop e4 move that it really seems to like. It's really hard on first glance for me to see what the big idea is behind this. Now the computer is also showing queen g5, which makes a little bit more sense because now we're threatening something. We're threatening bishop h3 here at least. So at least something's happening after queen g5. After bishop e4, I'm really kind of at a loss to figure out what exactly the idea is behind that move. Bishop e4, obviously putting pressure on the g2 pawn, but is that anything that I want to worry about? Yeah, I guess the computer's kind of off that idea anyway. So Chris played bishop c7, which I liked. I like this move a lot. Now he's transferring the bishop to a good attacking diagonal. Looks like on the a7 g1 diagonal it wasn't doing much anymore. Now on the b8 h2 diagonal, especially with the queen over here, where it looks like black is threatening some nasty stuff in the future. So f4. Which looked like I think Jon was just I don't know. I'd like to ask Jon about this game. I wonder if he thought maybe he's supposed to win all these games against Chris, so he wanted to play more actively. I'm not exactly sure what he was thinking here, but I think he was f4 is just it's too weakening of a move, I would say, in this position. But at the same time, I see the idea. I guess he's trying to block the diagonal, so I understand. I see the logic in his move. And he's also trying to hit the knight, of course, and trying to create some kind of a luft, maybe for rook f3 at some point, or bishop f3, and try to have more control of the center. But I think the e3 pawn is just extremely weak after this move. And it looks like it creates more weaknesses. There's no real attacking chances for white right now. The black king's about as safe as it can be. So I think f4 is just maybe a little too weakening. And it looks like the computer's actually really liking this move a lot. Bishop takes d3. Well, this is interesting. So I guess after if bishop takes d3, e4 is coming. So this is interesting. So computers are fantastic tactically, obviously. Not only not is e4 going to win the bishop back, but now we have this nasty threat over here. Yeah, and it's really hard to stop. It looks like if you play like h3. I wonder if you queen g3 if that's any good. But yeah, it looks like taking here is first is better. So yeah, this whole line was pretty crazy. So yeah, f4 just it looks like it loses on tactical grounds, and positionally it doesn't look that great to me either. Chris played the second best move here with knight g4. and then bishop takes, and I think Jon's still holding on here, but it looks a little bit better for black still to me. Hopefully I'm not analyzing too much by result, but it looks like he did a good job, Chris, to kind of create some dynamic play, create some weaknesses in the position, and then it looks like this e3 pawn is going to be a total weakness the whole game. So queen e1. Chris took on e1, so he sent me a note about this. He thought he calculated this well, that he thought queen takes e1 was the best move, which he turned out to be correct. Rook f takes e1. And then, here Chris is just playing real good. He played d5. So opening up the position for the two bishops. If c takes, then rook takes d5 is good. Obviously c takes is no good because then the bishop's hanging. And it looks like black pieces are just getting more active. Say something like, say if we have knight b4, I'm guessing rook a5 is they're showing. I think rook d2 looks like a much more natural move that I would probably play. Bishop c3. And then maybe I was over optimistic. Maybe white could hold this also, but it looks pretty tough still. This knight on b4 looks like a easy piece to attack in the near future, and then the two bishops are going to become quite active in a minute too, I think. So d5, and then so opening up the position for the two bishops. Jon played c5, and which that didn't look right to me just by eye. Rook f8. So Chris is getting to the point of the matter, trying to attack the e3 pawn, and then knight e5, which I like this move by Jonathan. This is a pretty smart move. Close up the file for the meantime, and then also hit the bishop with tempo. So bishop f5, and then king f2. So getting the king into the game, although I'm guessing getting the king into the game probably isn't the best explanation. I think it's just trying to guard the e3 pawn, so maybe the rook on e1 could get active again at some point. Chris played bishop a5, hitting the rook on e1, bishop c3, and I think Jon kind of did a good job in this position to hold this. I think he fought back pretty well. Chris played d4, which computer doesn't like this move that much, but I do kind of like this move. Just kind of getting his pawns rolling a little bit. Maybe the weakness behind this move, though, is that it allows white to easily liquidate his weakness on e3 by just taking the pawn. So maybe, I guess on second thought, maybe I don't like d4 that much. Bishop e4 looks like a good move. Maybe bishop e4 and f5, just planting the bishop on e4 might be okay. But the drawback then is this knight on e5 is pretty much immovable also, unless you want to sack the exchange on e5 at some point. So d4, e takes d4, rook takes d4, and I think both sides have played very well. It looks like Jon has kind of gone out of the more treacherous part of the game. I thought my first thought was actually knight f3 looked good. I didn't really like this g3 idea that Jon played next. Sorry to keep messing up the names like that. But g3 I thought was a too weakening of a move. I thought knight f3 actually, when I was looking at the game the first time, looked like the best alternative. So just to give like a sample variation that I was looking at. So takes. Okay, and knight takes d4. Okay, never mind. So basically this looks pretty strong. So this computer showing rook d to e4. And then maybe just rook c d3 looks good, and then this looks like it'd be no problem for white to hold this position. Jon didn't play knight f3. He played g3, and now I think the position is basically lost for white. So Chris did a good job in inducing that weakness. Rook d2 check, and then rook e2. And then, so basically that's how kind of chess is usually. One blunder leads to another blunder. So rook e2 basically just seals the whole game for the black side, for Chris. Anything else would have been better, king f3 or king g1, but rook e2, rook takes e2, king takes e2, and now black exploits the pin along the e-file with f6. So I don't think I have too many beginners that watch these videos. Maybe in the future that'd be cool, but basically if you're a beginning player, attack pin pieces is a pretty good motto, almost very high percentage of the time. So knight's pinned. Chris found a way to attack the pin piece with f6, and Chris got a well-deserved win in this game to level a score at 1.5, 1.5. And yeah, I think we have a good match on our hands now. So Chris will have the white pieces in the next game, and I'm kind of curious what will happen next. But thank you for tuning in. Hopefully the video was instructive, and yeah, this is Ryan signing off. Thanks for watching.